This video will take a US B-21 bomber and show how it would reach an important target in China. It will show plausible approach routes, what issues the B-21 would encounter while flying over China's airspace, and how it would manage to survive one of the most defended airspaces in the world and deliver its bombs onto Beijing, deep inside Chinese airspace. Hey, what is this? A cute Binkov plushie? Well, I guess I could use an adjutant. Come here, little fella, I'll take you home. And you too can take your own Binkov adjutant.
Available at Crowdmade store.
Yep, we made a Binkov plushie. If you want one for yourself or as a gift,
do check out our Crowdmade store.
The link is available below in the video description. It's not too small, not too big, perfect for your desk or your shelf next to your military history books. Or you can give it away. We've made it as low cost as humanly possible, which is very hard when you're contracting very small production runs. Well, go ahead and treat yourself. Some will say, why just not use cruise missiles? The US does have upward of 10,000 of those, but against China that figure is far inadequate. On the other hand, the US has hundreds of thousands of much cheaper short-range guided bombs, deployable by aircraft. Also, some targets like command centers buried deep underground or airbase tunnels simply can't be dealt with by using cruise missiles. Multi-ton bunker busters hitting ground at supersonic speeds is something only planes can deliver. And only bombers, the B-21 Raider for example, can deliver the massive GBU-57, a 12-ton bunker buster. There are many important targets in China. Most are near the coastline. But for example, Chengdu, where 100 J-20 stealthy fighters are made per year, is deep inland. Wuhan, where conventional submarines are made, is also quite inland. Beijing is also a very hard target, surrounded by more SAM sites and air bases than most other places in China. Many Chinese companies have headquarters and development centers there. The F-26 missiles are produced there. China's Pentagon equivalent command center with deeply buried underground bunkers is being constructed in Beijing. There are two main direct threats to the B-21 bomber: the Chinese Air Force, which might be scrambled to intercept, and SAMs, which are both land-based and ship-based. While it may appear that Beijing is fairly close to the coast, the seas around it would be teeming with China's Navy ships equipped with high-end radars and powerful SAMs. Sure, other US forces would likely be attacking the Chinese Navy, but still, out to 100 miles from Chinese shores is an area where China's Navy air defense destroyers might be safe. In effect, that means that even by going over the sea, the B-21 would still have to cross at least 400 miles of enemy territory, highly populated with SAM interceptors. Now, how would the Raider approach China? Its unrefueled range isn't known, but it is plausibly around B-2's range figure. Yet it's a meaningless figure. Such strategic assets are devised to get as many in-air refuelings as needed. In 2024, B-2s flew for over 30 hours from the US to Yemen and back, bombing the Houthis. Raiders could very easily stay based in the continental US, or fly from forward bases like Hawaii, if Guam base is damaged. One or more B-21s, depending on mission needs, might for example take off from Hawaii. They could fly to east of Japan, 3,500 miles away, where they would get fully refueled in air. From that point, even though the distance to Beijing remains some 1,800 miles, the B-21 would have the luxury of roughly double the fuel needed to reach said distance. That is crucial because it would be insane to fly the shortest, straightest, and therefore the most obvious route. One of the most important aspects of stealth plane use on strike missions is their route management. Basically, the US would use their vast array of satellites to map out as many threat types and threat locations as possible, threats which could endanger the Raider. Newest Starshield satellite constellation, which is being built up, is of huge help there. It uses cloud-penetrating radar sensors. When coupled with hundreds of various other satellites US has access to, It would enable the US to keep track of the locations of most radars and SAM batteries in China, with updates every half an hour or so. Now, of course, it's possible some SAM batteries would be missed or misinterpreted due to camouflage or decoys. There's always risk involved, and while the land-based SAM batteries don't move that often and need time to pack up, ship-based ones could move 10 or so miles regularly each half an hour update, just by sailing. Then again, ships would be much harder to hide from satellites using radars. There would also be many Chinese air bases around. Their activity could also be tracked and noted. Approximately how many planes might each base have ready for interception at any given moment. Precise tracking would be impossible, but some estimates of a less crowded approach route for B-21 compared to more crowded approaches could and would be devised. Similar dynamic maps would be made of SAM threats. We can't show ships, which there would easily be a dozen, but SAM batteries have their usual peacetime deployment sites, which are known. In reality, SAM batteries would redeploy to various other fairly nearby locations during wartime, but we can see that the density of SAM units is not really the same from all approaches. So suppose the US intelligence makes a dynamic map of China's actual SAM locations, which happens to look similar to what we showed during the mission planning phase. There might be some gaps to exploit. For example, a southern approach might lead to fewer SAM sites being overflown or even approached, or an approach over North Korea near the border with Russia, depending on Russian radars, then to the west before another opening towards Beijing emerges. Or in theory, a flight from mainland US to an Arctic Sea refueling point, then over Russia and through Mongolia. That too might work. Russia is so vast that its air forces and SAM defenses might be stretched out, leaving some dynamic gaps. Once again, those aren't necessarily actual routes. Route opportunities would change daily, depending on relocation of Chinese units and the status of Chinese Air Force bases in range for interception. For example, it would be very likely that at least some of the air bases closest to the route or otherwise deemed most dangerous would be hit by US cruise missiles or winged bombs from US fighter jets. The idea would be to temporarily disable interceptions from highest threat bases. Just like some of the SAM sites on the route could be attacked or suppressed, some of the bigger low-frequency radars would likely get attacked. Again, not by B-21s destined for Beijing, as that would give their position away, but by various other US assets. That's what cruise missiles are really for, to kick down the doors temporarily so other assets can seize the moment and get in. In fact, certain radars would most definitely have to be attacked by the US first. Early warning radars such as over-horizon radars and other massive fixed radar sites which might be able to detect even the B-21. Those radars are so big that they can't be hidden and there are not many of those around. They could be engaged by mass cruise missile volleys, perhaps from other B-21s inside China. China might still be able to spot US planes intermittently, so radars for Beijing might be just one part of an otherwise large and distributed force. For example, forward radars might be tasked with attacking something else, on the coastline or the Chinese border with North Korea, thus drawing the Chinese interceptors away from the route that the Beijing-bound radars might take. Once those B-21s are inside China, it might be too dangerous to have any fighter escort fly anywhere near them. B-21 is designed to have the lowest radar signature possible, so if F-35s or F-22s fly close and get detected, which they very well might, then the B-21s could be in danger as well. Much more likely would be aggressive fighter sweeps luring the Chinese fighters away, yet sticking fairly close to the border, as fighter jets simply don't have the range to go deep inside defended space. And as we saw, roundabout routes might easily take even 1,000 miles of flight over Chinese mainland until Beijing is reached. Biggest threat to the radar would be a lucky SAM battery that the US missed, one that just happened to be right under its flight path, and Chinese fighter jets stumbling onto the radar, probably detecting it with its infrared sensors in the night. Night missions would be most likely. Still, with enough planes in the air, China might occasionally get lucky. Now the same mission could be attempted with B-2, but B-2 is now 35 years old tech. Enemy radars have moved on. It's likely B-2 would be detected earlier and would not survive such a risky mission. On the other hand, stealth technology has also progressed. The US Air Force described B-21 as almost undetectable even to the best air defense networks. There is no actual proof, but rumors exist that back in the 1990s, some stealth demonstrators showed -70 decibel radar signatures. To compare, the F-22 is said to achieve at best -40 decibels. Also, the tiny 1990s bird of prey demonstrator is rumored to be visible by the naked eye in the air, but not by radar. That's like a few miles, maybe 5 miles away, with no radar return. To give you more context, here's what a modern powerful fighter jet radar can detect. The lowest value is indeed -70 something decibels, 0.60 in square meter terms. Now, a fighter-sized aircraft would have a problem with long wavelength radars, whose wavelengths would resonate with the length of wings and other surfaces. That issue is well visible here. Baseline F-35 figures were achieved by the author using fairly rough models and little to no radar-absorbing materials. With a finer model and RAM, F-35's RCS would be drastically lower against short wavelength radars, but it still illustrates the issue. All fighter jets, even the F-35, have their radar returns drastically increase once looked at by UHF and VHF radars. But the B-21 has wing leading edges measuring 90 feet long. Even VHF radars won't really resonate with that, as their wavelength is usually a dozen or so feet. Radar also has a cleaner trailing edge profile than the B-2 with fewer surfaces, and its engine inlets are much better integrated into the fuselage. So even high-up radars like those on AWACS planes would have issues detecting them. Ultimately, where a B-2 might be detected by, say, 10% of Chinese radars in their network at average distances of 20 or 30 miles, the technology advances in radar-absorbing materials and shaping might allow the B-21 to, say, cut those in half. All these distances are illustrative only, of course. The bottom line is B-21 offers the best chance the US has to deliver cheap bombs and penetrating bombs deep inside China. Sure, some missions would likely suffer detection and some B-21s might get lost over time. The question is, would the pace at which the US loses its radars be eclipsed by the pace of destruction those bombers might cause in China?